Before empires, before borders, before history even understood war, two civilizations fought for their very survival. This is the story of the first war ever recorded. If you love great cinematic history, give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and join us at Elemental History 5,000 years ago. In the Fertile Crescent between two great rivers, the civilization of Sumer rose from the dust. Cities like Uruk and Lagash blossomed, their wealth built on intricate irrigation, mountains of grain, and bustling trade. But their entire existence was fragile, utterly dependent on the delicate canals that brought life-giving water to their fields. East of Sumer, across the formidable Zagros Mountains, stood another power, Elam. This was a highland civilization, a world of stone, metal, and timber resources that the Sumerians desperately lacked. For a time, trade connected these two worlds. Sumerian grain flowed east, while Elamite wood and minerals traveled west. But this delicate balance couldn't last. In a world defined by scarcity, it was only a matter of time before these neighbors became bitter rivals. The stage was set for a conflict that would define the very nature of human civilization. Why did war begin? The answer lies in the fundamental needs of these two societies. Sumer, a flat, alluvial plain, was a powerhouse of agriculture but starved for basic materials. They needed stone for their temples, metals for their tools, and timber for their buildings. All things found in abundance in the Elamite highlands. Elam, on the other hand, watched with envy as Sumer's fields produced massive surpluses of food. They also needed secure access to the lucrative trade routes that ran through Mesopotamia, connecting the region to the wider world. The tension was palpable. The earliest clay tablets we've discovered don't just record harvests and hymns. They record disputes, arguments over water rights, contested borderlands, and demands for tribute fill these ancient records. This wasn't just random raiding or tribal chaos. This was organized, strategic conflict, driven by resources and territory. It was the world's first geopolitical struggle. From the mists of prehistory, the first kings of war begin to emerge, their names etched into stone and clay. We hear of Enmebarojesi of Kish, a Sumerian king who, according to legend, carried away the weapons of Elam as spoils of war. We see the rise of figures like Enadam of Lagash, a ruler immortalized on one of the most important artifacts in history, the Stele of the Vultures. This amazing carving. It gives us our first look at a well-organized, professional army of Sumerian soldiers standing in formation, their shields locked together, a bristling wall of spears pointing forward. This wasn't a mob. This was a trained fighting force. This is the earliest known image of a standing army. Across the mountains, the Elamites were not idle. They responded to Sumerian ambitions with swift raids and devastating counterattacks, using their knowledge of the highland terrain to their advantage. War was no longer a sporadic event. It had become systematic, a tool of state policy wielded by kings. So, how did they fight? The battles of this era were a clash of opposing philosophies. The Sumerian armies, drawn from the disciplined society of their city-states, relied on formation and cohesion. Their spearmen, protected by heavy shields and helmets, were trained to fight as a single, unstoppable unit on the open plains of Mesopotamia. The Elamite warriors, in contrast, were masters of their mountainous homeland. They utilized speed, surprise, and their superior metalcraft to launch ambushes and lightning raids. They were expert archers and skirmishers, using the terrain to outmaneuver the more ponderous Sumerian formations. The consequences of these wars were brutal. Cities were besieged and looted, their treasures carried off. Fields were torched, destroying the enemy's food supply. Captives were taken not to be slaughtered, but to be used as labor, building the temples and canals of the victors. In this new kind of warfare, victory wasn't about total annihilation. It was about control. The control of resources, of trade routes, and of people. In the ancient world, no war was fought without the gods. Both Sumer and Elam believed their actions were divinely sanctioned. Sumerian kings were seen as the earthly representatives of the gods, and their rule was granted by divine will. When they marched to war, they did so to enforce the command of their patron deity to expand the god's domain and to bring order to the world. A victory for a Sumerian king was a victory for his god. Likewise, Elamite rulers saw themselves as protectors of their ancestral lands, fighting to reclaim what was rightfully theirs under the watch of their own powerful pantheon. Far from preventing conflict, religion became a powerful tool of justification. It gave moral weight to political and economic ambitions, transforming a war for resources into a sacred duty. Both sides were totally convinced the gods were on their side, sparking a conflict that dragged on for centuries. The fight between Sumer and Elam went on for ages, a constant tug-of-war between the flatlands and the hills. But around 2334 BCE, a new power rose that would shatter this balance forever. His name was Sargon of Akkad. Sargon brought together all those city-states in Mesopotamia, creating the first true empire. With the full might of a united Sumer and Akkad behind him, Sargon turned his attention east. Akkadian armies stormed across the plains and into the mountains of Elam. They captured the great Elamite city of Susa, plundering its wealth and, in a move of profound symbolic power, seizing the statues of its gods and carrying them back to Mesopotamia. Elam was subjugated, but not broken. When Sargon's Akkadian empire eventually weakened and collapsed under its own weight, Elam saw its chance for revenge. Elamite forces surged out of the highlands, sacking Mesopotamian cities and reclaiming their stolen pride. The Age of Empires had begun, and with it, a brutal, unending cycle of conquest and revenge. The long and bloody wars between Sumer and Elam were more than just a series of ancient battles. They were a crucible that forged the very tools of civilization. The need to field and supply armies led to the invention of logistics. The need to justify these conflicts to the populace gave birth to propaganda, with kings boasting of their victories. On monumental stelae, the constant threat of war necessitated the creation of the standing army, a permanent class of professional soldiers. And in the lulls between fighting, the need to resolve disputes and manage truces led to the development of diplomacy and international treaties. From military strategy to statecraft, the conflict between these two ancient powers laid the foundation for how nations would interact for millennia to come. War, in its most organized and brutal form, had become a driver of innovation, reshaping civilization itself. The Sumer-Elam Wars were not just the first wars we have a record of. They were a brutal education for humanity. They taught us how to organize men into armies, how to supply them across vast distances, and how to motivate them to fight for causes larger than themselves. They were the first wars that taught humanity how to fight not just tribe against tribe, but nation against nation. And once that terrible knowledge was learned, it never vanished. Make sure to like and subscribe for more exciting content. Thanks for watching.